You're listening to Disturbing the Priest with Brandon Baddock. Episode 2, we are here, Disturbing the Priest. Episode 1 was a lot of fun. It's just a really short, intro to what my podcast is going to be about. It's only 15 minutes. I go over the history of heavy metal. It was a lot of fun to make. A little stressful because it's my first episode of a podcast, but I feel like going forward I can have more fun with it. There's more I can do with it. A lot of subjects I can talk about, especially this episode. So this episode comes out on 4/20, so I thought it would be the right move to make this episode all about stoner metal, like stoner doom metal, like Black Sabbath, Sleep, Electric Wizard. The main focus of this episode is actually going to be Dopesmoker. I'm going to go over the whole history of it. I love the album Dopesmoker and song. But yeah, this podcast is a lot of fun. I can't wait to keep doing it. There'll be longer episodes, I promise. The first one was only 15 minutes. But yeah, so Sleep. Let me just talk about stoner doom metal first. And to understand stoner doom metal, I guess you have to really know what doom metal is. My personal favorite genre of metal of all time. I love doom metal. Stoner doom is pretty good too, but doom metal is so amazing. So I have it defined right here. Doom metal is an extreme subgenre of heavy metal music that typically uses slower tempos, low-tuned guitars, and a much thicker or heavier sound than other heavy metal genres. Both music and lyric intend to evoke a sense of despair, dread, and impending doom. So that's where we get the name and term doom metal from. So if you're wondering what bands would be considered doom metal bands, Black Sabbath, Black Sabbath, Pentagram, Saint Vitus, Candlemass. There's a lot of great doom metal bands and a lot of great doom bands today too. A lot of people think that doom kind of ended in 70s and 80s because metal was kind of born out of doom metal. Black Sabbath is the first metal band, as I talked about on my last episode. So doom metal is really the first genre of heavy metal we get, and it has definitely evolved. It has come so far out of the mainstream, it's insane. Because Black Sabbath, they were pretty mainstream back in the day. Doom metal was in top 40, and now it cannot be any farther. So one of my favorite modern doom bands are Sleep. Really hard to listen to on Spotify because every time I search Sleep, it'll just give me playlist of nighttime playlists and ambient music, which is pretty funny. Sleep is stoner doom. So I talked about doom metal. Stoner doom is taking everything that I mentioned about what doom metal is with, having it be a thicker sound, a heavier sound, lyrics invoking a sense of dread and impending doom. Now we're just going to add weed to that. So stoner doom is really just nothing changes musically, but the lyrics will focus on weed as well. And we can see that heavily in Sleep. Sleep really is the one of the biggest stoner doom bands out there besides Black Sabbath. And I do consider Black Sabbath a stoner doom band. If you don't, listen to the song Sweet Leaf. And maybe that might change your mind. Some popular stoner doom bands today are Sleep and Electric Wizard, two of my favorite bands. I love these two bands. But for now, I want to kind of focus on Sleep and the album/song Dopesmoker. Really, that whole album is what I'm centering this episode around. It is the 420 episode. I feel like this is the best opportunity right here to talk about Dopesmoker. So Sleep formed in 1990 as an American stoner doom metal band. And I'm not going through their entire band history, but they put out a demo. They put out a first one, and you know, they got pretty big in the underground until they were signed to London Records, the same label that the Rolling Stones were under. If you are familiar with the album Let It Bleed by the Rolling Stones, it's under London Records. And it's funny that this label picked up Sleep. What a change of pace from, you know, the Rolling Stones to a stoner doom metal band. They were picked up. They were given a pretty big budget to record their next one. And Sleep already had an album in the works that was called Jerusalem, which we will later know as Dopesmoker. But Jerusalem is about traveling through like a sci-fi holy land to deliver weed, which is what I've picked up in the lyrics. When writing the song musically, Matt Pike, the guitarist of Sleep, talks about being inspired from Indian guitar skills, or just Indian skills in general when writing the song, which is really cool to have like some international inspiration when writing this instead of just very British/American riffs. They really took some inspiration from other cultures when writing this behemoth that was known back then as Jerusalem. So the album took 4 years to make, and most of the money used to record the album was spent on weed, which is in character. It's like, what was London Records expecting? A stoner doom metal band. You give them like maybe like close to $1 million budget. You think they're gonna like sit down and say, all right, gang, like they're gonna mess around with it? Like, are you kidding me? Their last records, they pretty much had a budget of like $20. Now they have this crazy budget. Yeah, they spent most of it on weed, which I'm kind of glad. It's called Dopesmoker. You kind of had to be in the mindset to write something called Dopesmoker, something about delivering weed in the Holy Land. And they also spent over $75,000 on custom amps and guitars. So they were really putting everything they had into this, in mentally preparing themselves and musically, with some custom amps that could really highlight and define their sound, along with some more gear, some more pedals, maybe some more time in the studio. But they used a reel-to-reel to record the song, and because a reel can only hold 20 minutes, they had to cut the song into 3 parts. So Jerusalem, this like giant song, was recorded in 3 parts off a reel-to-reel. So they have like these 3 sections of this one song. So, you know, they finish it. They have it recorded. They pretty much blew their entire budget on this one song, marijuana and gear. They bring it to the label, and, you know, what do you expect the label to do? They tear apart the album. They complained it was too heavy and obviously too long. So what they did is they remixed it, and it ended up coming out like 2 years after it was recorded. And in that time, the band broke up. So the whole thing's a mess. It's crazy that it took 4 years to make. The label takes it and completely destroys the song. It tried to chop up the album into separate songs, which went horribly. It took 2 years. And by the time the album actually came out, the band broke up. You know, the album comes out, the band breaks up, rumors spread, and people are thinking like, oh my God, we want to hear the uncut version of this song. Like, there's this song out there, you know, there's this version of this album out there that's one song. But some good news, eventually in the early 2000s, they released the unedited, unmixed version of the song, which ended up being at 1 hour and 3 minutes and was titled Dopesmoker. They finally came together, put out the real album, and they renamed it Dopesmoker, which I think is a way better fitting name. Jerusalem's kind of cool, but there's just something about the name Dopesmoker that just get everything you need to know across about this record. What an album. What an album. Talk about some of the best album art of all time. I have this on vinyl. I've seen a bunch of like Jerusalem copies of it just floating around. I've seen some Dopesmokers with there's like several cover arts of this because, you know, it's been remixed, it's been remastered 100 times. But there's 3 really distinct ones. There's like this greenish one. There's one where it has Dopesmoker on the title, and it's like all gray with this guy with a sword riding like this like 4-headed horse. And then there is the final album cover, which is my favorite, where it's of these like druids walking through the desert, and there's like 2 planets in the background. It's such a cool album art, and there's no better image that matches an album than Dopesmoker. Well, that is kind of a hot take, but it's up there. It might be in the top 10 album covers of all time. It gets everything across. It is such a beautiful cover too. I have, like I said, I have it on vinyl. You open it up, it's a gatefold, and it's the same cover because it's an album art that continues on the backside. So when you open it, it's like one big picture, and it's like of the desert and all the druids walking with like these camel alien things. There's like a spaceship. You open the gatefold, and it's the same setting without the druids, but at nighttime, and it's so beautiful. It's such a great cover. I cannot preach enough about this album art. But on vinyl, it's 2 LPs, which is so funny. It's 2 LPs for one song. I have it here. I'm going to play it on 420, which is the day this episode gets released. And I recommend you listen to it too. During my show, I have like a radio show the same day that the podcast episodes come out. And for my radio show, Into the Void, I'm actually going to play Dopesmoker in its entirety on air, which I don't think has been done before. Maybe it has. I don't know. WMLN 91.5 Into the Void. It's at 7 to 9. So the song is going to be like half of the show. What better time to play that song on air? Talk about a perfect 420 special for the radio show. So I'm excited about that, but it is a wonderful album. It gets some criticisms too. If you haven't guessed, it's an hour and 3 minutes long. A lot of people say, I'm not going to listen to the same riff for an hour. It's just a mediocre riff that just plays over and over. I'm going to be honest, I love the Dopesmoker riff. I think it's really good. I watched the whole documentary on Dopesmoker before making this podcast episode because I just wanted to refresh my head on this album. And I love this quote. I forget who it was, but some dude's like, you know, sometimes you just want to hear the same riff for 10 minutes or an hour. And that's pretty much the case with this record. It's just so heavy. The drums are the main aspect of this record, though. A lot of people are so focused on that riff. Even Matt Pike said the drums are kind of the star of the show. Talk about excellent drumming. Talk about some awesome stuff on the drums, especially when the drums kick in, because it's that riff, and then the drums slowly start up and it goes right into the song. But that's the thing about like stoner doom metal, or just doom metal in general. There's a tendency to make very long songs, and of course, like Sleep has one of the more famous ones with Dopesmoker. But if you look like at Candlemass's discography, there's a lot of long songs. Black Sabbath has a lot of long songs. Electric Wizard, all their songs are like 10 minutes. So there's a lot of long songs in the doom metal world. Honestly, I love it. You know, I'll listen to a 5-minute song because those short doom metal songs are out there, and you'll find them. And sometimes I find them, and I'll listen to them, and it'll feel like the song's cut short. You know, I just feel like there's a lot of songs out there, a lot of rock songs, a lot of metal songs where the riff's kind of fast, and in doom metal and stoner doom, they slow these riffs down. And because of that, it makes more sense to naturally stretch out the length of the song, which sounds way better than if the song was, being rushed or like shortened, if it was like 5 minutes compared to like 15. But Sleep, awesome band. I love Dopesmoker. I think it's a great song. The lyrics in Dopesmoker are fantastic. It's a pretty beefy song lyrically. Of course, it's not like a book, but there's a lot to look at in terms of lyrics. The opening line of the song is "Drop out of life with bong in hand. Everything you need to know about the song. Follow the smoke to the rift-filled land. Proceeds the Weedian Nazareth. Arise, 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 the son of the God of Israel." So we do get those religious themes, and we can see why the song was originally called Jerusalem. Raise up, sea of holy prophecy. Talks about weed priests. The caravan holds to Eastern creed. Now smokes believer. Just like crazy, crazy lyrics. And the last line, follow the smoke, Jerusalem. So we can definitely see the religious themes. We can see why it was originally called Jerusalem. I love the lyrics of the song. And this is why it's called stoner doom metal, because of how everything centers around some kind of form of marijuana in almost like a comedic way. It's so cool, and there's something about it that makes it so heavy and not cheesy, because you think it would be, and some people do believe it is. But what makes the lyrics perfect for this song, and especially like an hour song, is the song's about a journey. It's about delivering weed through the Holy Land to Nazareth, I believe. And while you listen to the song, the farther you get into the song, you feel like you're almost on that journey with the so-called Weedians that we follow in the song. And that's what makes the lyrics so great, because you feel like you're on that journey with them to the end of the song. So there's that element of like immersion in this record. But 2003, Dopesmoker by Sleep, amazing stuff. I do want to dip into Sleep's other albums as well, because they do a lot more than just Dopesmoker. They have a lot going on. Unfortunately, they disbanded as of the recording of this podcast, but hopefully they'll be back. Funny enough, I actually got a chance to see Sleep 2 years ago on 420, but I was on campus and I didn't have a car. It was like a 2-hour drive, but I would have made it. I would have done it in a second. To see Sleep on 420, imagine that show. But yeah, Sleep started in 1990. That's when they released their demo. Volume 1, their full length, was released a year later in 1991. Sleep's Holy Mountain is some people call their magnum opus. It's one of their first full releases after Volume 1 that came out in 1992, November 1st, which has arguably their most famous song, Dragonaut. Also some good ones on here. The Druid, the title track, Holy Mountain. Inside the Sun is so heavy. Some Grass, the instrumental on the album, is like a very bluegrassy song, which is really funny hearing on this record and fits. But talk about some of the best riffs you'll ever hear. It's packed with some of the best. And you do have those weed themes implemented in a lot of the music. The Druid. Say no more. But we have their most recent album release being The Sciences, which is actually, funny enough, like that's kind of when I got into Sleep. I knew about Sleep. I knew about Dopesmoker. I was in some more classic heavy doom than stoner. But The Sciences really was the album that turned me over to modern stoner doom and other stoner doom bands. I think Dopesmoker is their best release, but The Sciences is amazing. It is very good. I recommend, if you're ever going to get into stoner doom, that The Sciences is a really good place to start. So it starts out with this instrumental, which is the title track, which is just this like ecstasy of notes, and it's so overwhelming, which stops suddenly into the next song, which is called Marijuana Knots Theme, which starts with the sound of a bong rip and then goes into the song, which is so good. This is a very, very weed-oriented album. We go into Sonic Titan, which is one of their older songs, but it's nice to finally see it on a release. Fantastic. Then they have kind of a tribute to Black Sabbath with a song called Giza Butler. Oh my God. The Botanist on this too, which is an instrumental, which is fantastic. Just such a solid, heavy record. Vocals are amazing on this, with, of course, Al doing the vocals and Matt Pike, of course, on guitar, with Jason on the drums. But Sleep is a fantastic band. I highly recommend you check out their stuff if you haven't already. Another one of my favorite 90s era stoner doom bands is Electric Wizard. Their name says it all. One of the most evil bands I've ever heard in my life. And they use their sound in such a way to convey that, on top of lyrics, on top of sampling. Their first full length, 1994, and they have a lot of releases, way more than Sleep. Their most recent was Wizard Bloody Wizard from 2017, with a live album in 2018. My favorite album of Electric Wizard, and talk about a magnum opus here, Dope Throne, double LP, Funeralopolis, one of the heaviest songs I've ever heard in my life, maybe the heaviest. Monolord's up there, but Funeralopolis, if you're playing that in your car, you turn the bass up to 10. The lyrics talk about, despair. I don't care, this world means nothing. Funeral planet, dead black asteroid. The title track on this record, Dope Throne, is 20 minutes. The opening line of the song is Dope Priest Prophecy. If that doesn't tell you what the song is going to be about, I don't know what will. But my favorite song on this record, Dope Throne, is I the Witchfinder, which has one of the best riffs ever. And it's a first-person perspective of hunting witches. Another great one is Witch Cult Today and Time to Die. Time to Die is really good. It has this song called Incense for the Damned, which is all about weed. The opening line, you say drugs are evil, but your world seems worse to me, uses some sampling as well. It's so evil. And if you look at their album art, it is some of the most evil looking cover arts you'll ever see. And of course, there are more evil bands and cover arts, but this is one of the most evil. One of the most evil lyrically and musically. There's some other really great doom bands out there, a lot of great stoner doom that kind of evolve Electric Wizard sound and evolve Sleep sound, that also have stoner doom elements to them and talk about weed and the occult and Satan. If you are to pick an album on 420 to listen to, it's Dopesmoker. Some of these are doom metal, some of these are stoner doom, some of them are both, but some bands that I love that kind of fit in this category: Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats, Monolord, Windhand, Conan. Conan has some of the bassiest, heaviest riffs I've ever heard in my life. Acid King, Bong Gripper, and Dope Lord, just to name a few. And those bands, if you're ever trying to get into this genre, great bands to start out with. I'm Brandon Baddock. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I had a lot of fun making this episode. Stoner Doom is very close to my heart, and I'm definitely going to be blasting it when I finish recording this. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Disturbing the Priest, a heavy metal podcast, for updates on the podcast, and you'll even get some behind the scenes stuff. And I'd love to do like maybe a voting thing. Like I can start a poll and the poll can determine what the next episode will be about, what you'd like to see on the podcast. But as always, I'm Brandon Baddock, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.